tonight is about the All India Manufacturers Organization. Now, this is an organization of small and medium manufacturers across the country, and they say that 24 to 43% job loss of manufacturers in the last 4.5 years, according to their survey. Take a look.
8 नवंबर 2016 की रात्रि को 12 बजे से वर्तमान में जारी 500 रुपए और 1000 रुपए के करेंसी नोट लीगल टेंडर नहीं रहेंगे.
It's been 769 days since demonetization was announced, a move which directly impacted every citizen of the country. It's also been 534 days since the goods and services tax was implemented, which completely overhauled the indirect tax structure in the country. But both GST and demonetization have created a lot of problems, especially for the micro, small, medium enterprises as well as for traders. In fact, a recent survey by the All India Manufacturers Organization highlights the extent of job losses due to demonetization and GST. The survey says that between the years 2014 and 2018, as many as 35 lakh jobs in both the manufacturing and the trading sector were lost as a result of the implementation of GST and because of demonetization. The government is yet to release their survey on the impact of both demonetization and GST. But Mirror Now ground reports have also painted a similar picture.
वाले फैक्ट्री में मैं बिहार में काम करता था, बहुत बढ़िया फैक्ट्री था. वहाँ से हमारे को बहुत कर्मचारियों को हटा दिए, हमारे को भी हटा दिए वहाँ से. यहाँ मजबूरी में आना पड़ा, रोहतक में, हरियाणा में. यहाँ सब्जी बेच रहा हूँ जीएसटी के कारण.
जीएसटी जब लगी थी, काम तो चौपट ही हो गया जब से जीएसटी लगी है.
Mirror Now asks, will the government concede that demonetization was in fact a failure? Does the government have plans to create more jobs? Let's debate.
Well, I want to remind our viewers to begin with here on the Urban Debate that we don't have one conclusive report from the Government of India that tells us how demonetization did and what impact it had on our economy. As such, without that piece of information, then a lot of these smaller reports are literally being pieced together to get a complete view. But this is where we are right now. And I'm holding in my hand the All India Manufacturers Organization and their report, among a study among their members. And it says basically that traders, micro, small and medium enterprises have had a negative impact with job loss of about 43% in the trader segment, 32% in the micro segment, 35% in the small segment and 24% in the medium segments, according to a comprehensive survey done by the All India Manufacturers Association across 34,000 TMSME representatives across the country. That's the conversation that we're having today. Joining me on the show, and of course we have some economists who say the estimates are exaggerated and it's not really that bad. Anila Singh for the BJP, Sulaiman Khan for the Congress, Mohan Guruswamy, senior economist. We also have K.E. Raghunathan, is the national president of All India Manufacturers Organization that has brought out this report. R. Gopalan, former Secretary of Economic Affairs, Ministry of Finance, Government of India, and Ajay Dua, former Commerce Secretary, Government of India. I welcome all of you to this conversation. I want to start with Mr. Raghunathan. This is your report. Could you please tell us, and there are some views that say 43% might be an exaggerated statement. Could you please tell us who were these 34,000 companies you spoke to and what were the results?
Good evening, Faye.
Good evening.
Before I begin, I wish all the people affected in the Mumbai fire safety to recover back to the life.
Thank you.
Now, the study of A.I.M.O has been done after 4.5 years of the present government in place. We have heard of several popular initiatives like Make in India, Skill India, Digital India, Startup India, Smart India, Innovation Center campaigns, Mudra loans, 59-minute loans, 2 crores of credit guarantee schemes, and demonetization to remove black money and negative cash circulations, and also the GST as a one tax documentation process. All this, it sounds that it should have improved the prosperity of industries. Prosperities of industry does cover traders and micro, small enterprises who provide job opportunities for unorganized sector, medium and large scale, to a larger extent provide organized sector employment. We wanted to study how these initiatives have impacted in the reality of the field. We took about 35,000 people to survey, and we have always felt this country has neglected traders. We don't even have a separate ministry for traders. We don't even identify traders as a large contributor to the economy in this country. When we did this analysis, we started with an analysis of the job loss. For A.I.M.O, the category job loss translates into three categories. Category 1, people without job. Category 2, people who are not employed in their core educated areas. For example, an engineer working as a Ola or a Uber driver or as a security is not considered as a job. Third, jobs where the people are underpaid. An engineer passing out of an IIT is today paid 2 lakhs a month, and another engineer passing out of a Tier 2 engineering college is paid 6,000 rupees a month. Both of them study for 4 years. Why this disparity in the life? So when we analyze job loss, we take all these three into the segments.
Okay, but
the second, our
no,
concern
I'll have
was
to ask you to
more
keep your opening
the
statement a little brief so I can bring in the rest of the panel. But I see Mr. Dua with his hand up already. If I may, let me just bring in Mr. Dua. Mr. Dua, go ahead. I believe you disagree with this method of study. Go ahead, please.
I think the survey on the basis of which these conclusions have been derived does leave a lot to question.
Okay.
We are bringing in new definitions of employment and unemployment. If somebody who's qualified doesn't get the kind of job which his academic degrees warrant, he is being counted as unemployed. Similarly, if somebody is underpaid, then again he is being termed as a jobless person. To that extent, I think we are redefining well-established definitions of employment or unemployment. I would say that there is no doubt that steps like demonetization, particularly in their early days, did impact the informal economy particularly drastically. There wasn't enough cash for the employer to pay his people, particularly when the money wasn't being paid, or wages or compensation wasn't being paid by check. It was used to be a cash deal. They were probably not on his payrolls, which would have warranted giving them security of tenure, provident fund, ESIC benefits, etc. For such people, certainly there wasn't enough money with the employers to keep them, and that's where the retailers and small industry employers come in. A lot of them shed their workers who went back to the farms, and whether they got employment there or not is a different matter.
Okay.
The question is, similar aspects or distress were experienced when GST was brought in without adequate preparation. There again, people were impacted, particularly when there was resistance on part of small and unorganized industry, including traders, to join the tax network.
Well, let me get opening statements from all of our guests. Mr. Mohan Guruswamy, do you believe that this report perhaps might be exaggerating the situation? Or do you actually think that among the small and medium manufacturers, that job loss could actually amount to 30 or 40%?
We really don't know, because the government should have had a survey of this, and we should have had data from the Department of Statistics on this. But unfortunately, we don't. So we've got this report from an industry organization, which is made some computations and says it has done some survey, and it indicates something which might appear exaggerated, but we don't know the truth. The truth should come out on the basis of what the government is doing. The government, unfortunately, conceals these figures, or right now there's a tendency towards exaggeration. Because, the Prime Minister, for instance, believes that the Mudra loans have created, at different times, 7 million jobs, 70 million jobs, and so on and so forth. But the fact is that, the average Mudra loan is about 4,000 rupees. So, you couldn't have created those jobs. MSME job losses have been heavy, but, we'd like to think that they were 20%, even 20% out of a MSME workforce of, over 150 million, organized, unorganized, is huge. Everything in this country is huge. So the suffering which people take because of joblessness is huge. But the previous, Ajay, of course, what he said was absolutely true, that, it sounds a bit exaggerated. But the president of the association said something very interesting. He said that if you're an engineer and you're working for Zomato, then, we've got to have some kind of
measure for that.
Status for these people.
Yes.
They're working below their skill level, they're working way below their education level, and so there's a question of forced employment. I've known of engineers now driving Uber taxis. I've met them also. So, what do you have to say about this? So obviously there is a huge amount of joblessness. It could be 30%, 20%, and this demonetization, the effect of demonetization has been felt by everybody, and there's no denial by anybody except, people in the Ministry of Finance and the Prime Minister's office that demonetization cost us hugely, and the cost of that was joblessness.
Mr. Guruswamy, there is someone who disagrees.
Certain kinds of joblessness we'll never be able to quantify. For instance, construction labor who lost jobs, we'll never be able to quantify.
Faye, I need to come in. I need to come
20
in
million
to
jobs
clarify.
went.
No, just one second. Let me bring in all of the panelists, and then I'll come back to you, Mr. Raghunathan. R. Gopalan, former Secretary of Economic Affairs, Ministry of Finance. Mr. Gopalan, if you've had a chance to look at the numbers of this report, and I just read them out as well, between 25 and 43% job loss among tiny, small and medium manufacturers. Do you believe that this might be exaggerated, or do you think that demonetization has in fact led to large-scale job loss?
See, unless I get through the methodology of survey which has been done, I won't be in a position to make my comments on whether the survey has actually reflected the actual number of unemployment or not. Mr. Dua mentioned about the way in which definitions have been taken into account for the purpose of getting into unemployment. So that is something which we need to look at, and I am not sure that's the correct way of proceeding to find out what is the level of unemployment. But at the same time, there have been a lot of anecdotal evidences which indicate that there has been tremendous amount of unemployment that went through as a result of demonetization. Especially in the unorganized sector, it was even much bigger. And in the organized sector, in the MSMEs, there is some way of knowing how the unemployment has really arisen. But the point also remains that post demonetization, we also find that the production levels have not come to the level at which they were prior to the demonetization. So there is an output loss, there is employment loss, and there is certainly income loss. This has certainly arisen, and job losses have arisen. So there is no doubt that this has arisen totally. Unfortunately, there is one study which should have come about at least about 5-6 months ago, a study of 5 years study of unorganized sector employment and the unorganized sector's output. Unfortunately, that survey has not yet been released by the government. Only when that survey gets released, we will have a good idea of the extent of output loss as well as employment loss as a result of the demonetization, and also as a result of GST which followed. So at this point in time, and I don't see, apart from this study, A.I.M.O study, I haven't seen any study on a sectoral basis or a cross-country basis or geographical basis or a caste level basis. I have not seen any study which throws the numbers or the results. In fact, there have been no such studies except A.I.M.O study. There is no other study out in the public domain. So unless studies come out with definitive information, to taking one study as a benchmark to know exactly what is the level of unemployment or job
Can I
losses
explain more?
may not be a correct thing to do.
Yes. All right. Fair enough. Mr. Raghunathan wants to explain a little bit. Go ahead. And then I'll bring in the
Can I
two
explain
political
more?
representatives. Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Raghunathan.
Let's understand few things, Faye. There is no necessity for A.I.M.O to give you a wrong picture at all. Let's take the 35 lakhs what we have tried quantifying. There is an error of judgment because you have only done about 35,000 people study and then contemplating it. But you take plastic industry closure, we are talking about 1.5 lakhs people on the roads. You take about unemployed engineers today in the market. Every year we are adding up to roughly about 2 to 2.5 lakhs of engineers are unemployed. If you had taken that figure, there is another about 6 to 7 lakhs of graduates, engineering graduates who are not employed. To another question, why my friend said I should include people with wrong core area employment as an unemployment is because those are the people who were meant for me as an industrialist. But if they go away taking up the other jobs, I am left with nobody for me. I don't want to have unemployables. I want to have employable, skilled manpower in my industry to perform. When will I employ? Only if I do profitable of business. Do I do profitable? You take, for example, the NPAs in this country on MSME sector, where the defaulters of the loan declared is close to almost, I think, about 2.5 lakhs. Even if each of them had employed 5 people, you are talking about 12 lakhs of people who are not available with the job due to the NPA alone. If you add up all the skills factor, the stone industry has come to a standstill. The dyeing industry has come to a standstill. The matchbox manufacturing industries have come to a standstill. The cracker industry has come to a standstill. The big industries which have been wound up or willful defaulters have landed in loss of employment with people. If you add up, in fact, from the morning when we released the survey, many people are calling me and said, why did you underestimate the survey? I said, I don't underestimate or overestimate. I present what I have got as a figure from the whole India level. I do understand. I don't have a substantiation of figures. I don't have a government data to counter with. I don't have another data to cross-check with. I have to come out. I was sincere in my study, collecting from the expertise of the people, genuine. There were a lot of plus points also in the last 4.5 years people felt. Corruption-free government, plus point. Transparent transactions, plus point. People found they are changing, is a plus point. Our feeling was, yes, we understand we were sick, and the government gave us a very strong tablet. They could have given us a vitamin to cope up with it, otherwise we would die. The vitamin was necessary for small-scale industries.
Yes.
Because small-scale industry cannot be treated with the same bandwidth of large-scale industries. The NPA, for example, 3 months is a defaulter of a principal is called NPA. A small-scale industry also measured with the same logistics. If there is a flood or a national calamity in Kerala, small-scale industry will not be able to repay in 3 months. How can they become NPA?
Yes, okay, fair enough, Mr. Raghunathan. Let me bring in the two political voices as well. Anila Singh first. Anila Singh, has the government or is the BJP, since you represent the BJP, prepared to now accept that demonetization was in fact a failure?
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely
See, demonetization
not even like a partial failure.
Chain of important decision. No. Okay. See, we have to see. It is the perception It is the perception which has been created by few who love informal economy, and it was a step taken by the government to get informal economy into formal economy.
What do you mean by informal
See,
economy, Ms. Singh? Would you please explain to us when you say people love the informal economy? What do you mean by informal
yes,
economy?
Absolutely. Informal economy is the cash-dominated economy.
And what's wrong with that?
I'll tell you, Faye. There is nothing to be so much coming so strongly on me. Like many a times, many of the leaders from the Bharatiya Janata Party and from the government side also, it has been explained. And again, I'm going to tell you, informal economy is definitely it was dominated by the cash. So if the cash economy gets converted into the digital economy or the bank-dominated economy, it definitely brings more transparency, more taxes, and more development to the country. And the facts and figures
let me point out to Anila Singh. All right. Okay, Anila Singh, let me point out to you that the outgoing Chief Election Commissioner said very clearly that politicians and the people who fund politicians for elections are still using as much, if not more, cash as they did before demonetization. So you wanted to make sure that the person who sells sandwiches or the person who is actually tying and dyeing for a living doesn't have any cash. But politicians have as much cash as they want to. And according to you, you call that a rousing success and not a failure. Suleiman Khan of the Congress, go ahead, please. Do you believe
that might be your knowledge? It is not mine. I'm talking
I think
from
majority
an
of the people.
point of view.
I think majority of the people on the panel and otherwise in the country completely are on the same page that demonetization has actually damaged the economy. And whenever I talk about demonetization, I just recall the wise words of Dr. Manmohan Singh when he addressed the Rajya Sabha in November 2016. And he said that the way demonetization has been done, it's an organized loot and a legalized plunder, and GDP growth rate will go down by 2 percentage points, and that is what has happened. We have lost, as per the data of Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, 15 lakh jobs have been lost just due to demonetization during that period. And as per their data, there are some 3 crore unemployed youth in the country as on February 2018. And as per the data of ILO, International Labour Organization, 77% Indian workers will have vulnerable employment by 2019. So all these issues are a cause of serious concern. And Mr. Modi, while he was campaigning for 2014, has promised 10 crore jobs within 5 years. He is completing his term. I think he has not been able to even create 30-40 lakh jobs for 2016.
Okay, so let me Suleiman Khan, refine the question a little bit for our panelists, because yes, because like the panelists said, it's a little difficult to examine and to judge this report without looking at the methodology that the study has used. Let me ask this question then of the entire panel. Can we take it for granted that a combination of demonetization and GST being dealt a year apart from each other has in fact costed us in jobs, in income, and perhaps in the health of the economy? Is that something that we have all perhaps, obviously Anila Singh is doing her job as a BJP representative, but the rest of the panel, is that something we can agree on? Mr. Dua, I saw your hand go up. Do you agree that it has costed us? We just don't know how much yet.
Certainly demonetization did, and the impact of demonetization on the country's GDP, employment, as well as tax revenue would have been there for almost a year. That is, from November 2015 when it was done till part of that financial year, as well as the next year. Soon thereafter, we saw in July 2017 GST being brought in. While we were just about recovering from the impact of demonetization, we found that an ill-prepared GST being introduced, which caused more disruption than benefit, exactly on the 3 aspects or the 3 broad macroeconomic parameters: tax revenue, as well as employment and GDP. I think now that this thing has also GDP, the GST impact has settled down, and we are beginning to see some positive impacts of it, the disruption could be caused by any amount of short-term measures, which usually precede whenever a national election is due. And that's what my fear is, that instead of moving into capital formation, when now the private sector was demanding some greater credit flow to put in capital investment, that's not forthcoming because of the crisis in the banking industry, as well as the public sector is not being left with enough money with it to be able to invest, because instead that's being involved in the so-called disinvestment targets of the government. Instead of pure disinvestment to the private sector taking place, the government is trying to reach that target by asking the cash-rich public sector undertakings to buy up its equity in
by hook or by crook.
Otherwise not so well doing.
Mr. Mohan Guruswamy wanted to weigh in as well.
And that is, I think, the cost which we are paying year after year of taking myopic short-term view of things to happen.
Mr. Guruswamy, go ahead.
I think there's a huge cost of demonetization. I disagree with Mr. Tua. I don't think we've recovered from it still. I think that cost, that effect is on us. We've lost millions of jobs. We've lost huge amounts of production. We're on a different trajectory of economic growth now. And, even it could be more than 2.5%, as Dr. Manmohan Singh has estimated 2%, but it could be more. And GST coming, an ill-conceived GST, was a double whammy. It threw everything out of kilter. And there is a shortfall of GST now, as what the government was expecting is not materializing. And it's a huge scramble for money. The government of India is broke. It's got no money, and it's doing all kinds of dubious things like, making BHEL buy back its shares so that, government can get some money from BHEL, making one company buy another company, one public sector company buy another public sector company, so that, it gets some kind of money. And, there's all kinds of things are happening, because if GST was working well, if the economy was growing, then all these problems would not have happened. The scramble for money would not be there. It's illogical otherwise to be scrambling for money and say everything is fine, everything is going up, It's just simple logic. And, talking about formalization of the economy, we haven't seen anything. And what does formalization mean? Even today, 80% of transactions are by cash on retail. You're not going to buy a kilo of bhendi with a credit card. So is that a cash economy?
Well, we understand, Mr. Guruswamy, that most of the people who moved
if we are seeing any formalization, we've seen any...
Yes, most of the people who moved to using, phone-based payments have actually gone back to cash now. And I just want to point out, and I'll ask Mr. Gopalan for this clarification, this understanding that just because the person selling vegetables at my street corner uses cash does not make that person, illegal in any way, or his business illegal in any way. And it doesn't mean that he is the, the bearer of all black money in the system, especially when the Election Commission has confirmed that the bearers of black money continue to do so. Mr. Gopalan.
Well, you are right. The person in a street corner who is selling vegetables and using cash for his transactions, it can't be called a black money. Incidentally, it is very difficult to know what black money is. Suppose you take money from a bank, from your account, and pay somebody without any vouchers or anything for him to do some particular job, that generates black money. Black money sometimes can also become white money. So it's very difficult to say what is exactly black money. Let me come to the demonetization first and the effect of it on the economy first. Well, jobs were lost, as I mentioned to you. GDP shrunk and NPAs increased. Now, the people who in the unorganized sector who are cut off from the whole, the cycle of economic activity got stalled there, and therefore they lost a lot of capital. Now, to replenish them with capital, there was no system in the country on the banking or non-banking financial companies system, which could give them the necessary capital which they lost. And the effect of that is not going to end in 1 year. Effect of that will continue for 2 to 3 to 4 years until they get stabilized, until they organize themselves into doing business. GST, well, it was a good scheme to introduce, but maybe administratively very inconvenient, very badly kind of drafted or implemented, and that had effect on a whole host of people. And the kind of rules which were put in, the kind of the returns we have got to furnish month after month, 2, 3 in a month, those kind of thing really put them onto the thing that can we not escape from this GST? Because then we are spending more time in filing returns rather than conducting our business. So that was the kind of problem which people in the GST faced. But the brunt of it is taken by the MSME sector very clearly. The losses in Surat, you go to Tirupur, Bhiwandi, you go to all places, Ludhiana, Jalandhar, you go to all places. The kind of anecdotes which one keeps hearing, the losses are pretty huge. And where did they all go? They went to the farm. When they went to the farm, farm incomes went down for a variety of other reasons, and they have been not able to get the kind of incomes which they otherwise should have got. So but now some steps have been taken. For instance, your trades where the discounted bills of the MSMEs are to be paid by the big industries in time, within a period of time. The number of returns they are going to furnish, the kind of inspections to be undertaken, the interest rate subvention scheme which has been given to them, the packing credit subvention which is being given to them. These are some of the steps which have been undertaken, but yes, a lot more has to be done for MSMEs to put them on a sound, sure footing. And they are very essential, Faye. They do 45% of our production, manufacturing, and they do 40% of our exports, manufacturing exports. That sector cannot be allowed to languish.
Right. So I want to bring in the Congress spokesperson, Sulaiman Khan. I cut you off a little earlier. I apologize. Go ahead, Sulaiman Khan. You were talking about the fact that this is entirely because of this government, but does the Congress have a different plan? Do you have some sort of plan of what you will do to fix these problems?
I knew beforehand that you will ask this question to me because I have been on your shows a number of times. I think the policy for creating jobs, once the Congress party comes back to power in 2019, hopefully and positively, we'll sort out the ways in which we can create jobs. Our Congress president has promised for that.
So no plan.
And we will not do false promises, and we will not throw jumlas like we'll produce 10 crore jobs. I cannot make a policy on a 1 hour show.
No, but if you knew I was going to ask this question, why didn't you call up the Congress president and ask him for his solution?
Because I can as on today, it's very simple. Once the Congress party is voted to power, the concerned ministers and the cabinet will sit together and create ways for creating the jobs. And I think Congress president has time and again stated this, that he need to empower micro, small and medium enterprises for creating jobs. Rather, we have seen that the way BJP has conducted itself and the economy, it has rather snatched away jobs. And the 2% of GDP loss which Dr. Manmohan Singh has stated in the parliament, it has almost wiped away 3 lakh crores from
Sulaiman Khan, while
economy.
it is tempting to...
And this is the problem. We have not promised 10 crore jobs.
Okay, so you won't promise. So that's a different thing. So what you're saying is that the Congress will not promise, so then you can take your time to actually solve the problem. But if we want you to solve the problem, you don't have, at least to offer me on the show right now, you don't have a solution. Anila Singh.
Then the cabinet will meet.
Anila Singh, I'm going to ask you a question again.
No, my president has said...
Well, forgive me. Anila Singh, here's the question I want to ask you. And we've heard the experts. Mr. R. Gopalan just said, and let me quote, he said, GDP has shrunk, NPAs have increased, jobs have been lost. What is the solution, Anila Singh? And you obviously, you were very clear about the fact that the government is not going to take responsibility for these things. But does the government even have a plan to solve these problems? Is there a plan on the table?
Not only the plan, we are working on it. Yes, there was an initial setback, but if we talk about the GDP growth in second quarter of the financial year of 2018-19, We are at 7.2%. So definitely our economy is getting more stronger by each quarter. But detoxification of the illegality in the economical sector was necessary to remove, to get it streamlined.
The detoxification of what? I'm sorry, you'll have to say that again. I didn't understand you.
Direct,
You
indirect,
said
corporate taxes has increased.
you said detoxification of the economy. I don't understand. What does that mean?
Direct, indirect, corporate taxes, they are increasing by manifold. This proves that the people who were hiding their income earlier, now they have started paying.
No, this proves, Anila Singh, if that were true, it would prove that you have offered people who were hiding their income an amnesty scheme in which they could turn their black money into white money and then quietly start paying tax instead of facing any prosecution. That's what it proves. You also said something about detoxification of the economy. I haven't fully understood what that is. Mr. Raghunathan, is there a demand that the Manufacturers Association has from the government right now to offer you some sort of help?
One thing more about the GST, Faye. Like you have been doing BJP bashing, BJP government bashing. So let me say something about the GST
Faye,
as well.
Faye, I wanted to tell you.
Yes, Mr. Raghunathan,
Faye, I
go
wanted
ahead.
to share with you.
Yes.
The demonetization was a one-time initiative. The demonetization is a one-time initiative. GST is a statutory compliance, complete changeover from the existing practice. Now, demonetization and the GST, the intentions are genuine, but both failed miserably in its execution. Fair enough. Now, having said that, not only these two, there are two other areas which we have not taken corrective steps. One is e-governance policy. E-commerce policy has been pending with this government for the last 3 years. We have not been able to announce the e-commerce policy. That has actually largely impacted the trading community. Traders are suffering because of the e-commerce policy. The second one is we have not relaxed NPA regularization for MSMEs in the last 1.5 years after the demonetization. This has also impacted the study. Now, let me tell you, A.I.M.O study was not only finding where the problem is. Actually, we came up with 20 suggestions to the government of India which can make the industries become healthier and the job opportunities can be created. Jobs cannot be created. To deliver a child, you need a 10 months time, whereas to kill a person, 10 seconds is enough. To create a new company, startup enterprise, nurturing them and then creating job opportunities, it will take longer time. Whereas nurturing the existing fellow will give the job opportunities.
Right.
It is that we have given 20 different immediate solutions, which we believe our Honorable Prime Minister, if he is able to consider these points, the merits and the demerits, will be able to announce it.
Yes.
A time has come, he needs to interfere. And some of the points, for example, is what is the intention of our Honorable Prime Minister? To eradicate black money, to eradicate number 2 transaction, to eradicate cash transaction. But today you see in GST, we have 18% service tax. Now 18% service tax is applicable even for an individual. For example, a house owner who has got 2 air conditioners, for a AMC he pays 18%. We have been saying, sir, this is leading to people asking without bill a transaction. Can we remove GST up to 15,000 rupees on an individual billing?
Okay, all right. Hang on, Mr. Raghunathan. Let me just bring in one last point of view from Ajay Dua. Mr. Dua, obviously, from where it is right now, we need two things, in my opinion. One is a very clear scientific understanding of the job situation in our country and what the cost has been for demonetization and GST implementation after that. And secondly, we need an immediate plan to solve this problem. Now, unfortunately, we might not see it either until after the general elections. Do you agree that perhaps the next 6 months, the pain will just continue?
I think so. Though on the whole, I don't anticipate too much of an amelioration of the existing state of affairs. Where there could be a degree of help coming in is if we get a good Rabi or the winter crop. We are seeing that good monsoon during the summer Kharif crop has kept up the economy. Otherwise, manufacturing had been sliding, exports have barely recovered, still not back to the high levels of 2014 when we had $315 billion of exports, and we are still below $300 billion as of now. The aggregate demand in the economy is building up largely because of the rural sector doing better than before. A 3.5% rate of growth in agriculture with good monsoons is possible. We have seen it in the past, and that could, to some extent, create greater, higher GDP as well as more of jobs, though these jobs need not necessarily be in the organized sector. The fact of the matter is, in India, if there are 200 million jobs in the unorganized sector, the organized sector barely has 20% of these 40 million jobs. So we have to be creating jobs at both the places. Demonetization impacted the small, medium enterprises, including traders, largely who were in the unorganized sector, and this building up of aggregate demand could help recover the lost jobs there.
All right, I'm going to leave it here because I've run out of time, and I want to thank our guests for giving us their time this evening to understand this entire matter. And like we started on this channel a year ago, we have to continue to pay attention to what we call at least the job crisis that India is facing that seems to be getting worse. What we need is a clear unemployment number across the country, which only the government of India can give us, which we don't have at this point. We need a clear understanding of the cost, both for the economy, the GDP, the jobs, and the loss of profit that demonetization has cost us in this country. Again, something that can only be given to us by the government of India that we don't have right now. And finally, like we've been saying for the last year, we need an immediate plan to solve the job crisis before it gets any worse. Remember, with the farm sector being in the kind of distress that it's facing right now, young people whose fathers and parents are farmers don't want to take up farming. They're looking for jobs. That's more pressure on the system with no jobs to be had. How many Zomato and Swiggy delivery boys are there going to be? How many Ola drivers will there be? What about everyone else? This cannot be the solution for the job crisis in the country. The government must indeed intervene. Thanks for watching.